Good morning and welcome to Mr. Cantelou Monday on this Monday, the 23rd of 2021 in August. Today we're going to jump into a brand new standard, so let's get started. For the agenda today, we have a do now. You guys will have that attached to Schoology, so you can go in and write down my vocab words. I'll leave a message on Schoology tomorrow morning. I'll give you time to write them down. Currently, we'll have a welcome agenda expectations, then we'll jump into the standards, objectives, and such questions. I'll go over the lecture on 2.4, and then you'll complete a guided reading over 2.4 following that. My expectations are we have a great class, learn something new, have fun, follow champs, and win beat the teacher. For my folks there at home, for Champs Day, guys, your communication, don't really worry about that. If you need help, that's the important part. You need to contact me via email. That's the best way to get a hold of me. Your activity today is to take notes, of course, and to do the guided notes, which I'll have provided for you. Your movement is however you need to move around the house. Watch this video in your own leisure. Your participation, guys, if you're working individually, we can do that. It will lead us to success. Of course, we want to win beat the teacher. Our standards from 2.4, we're going to evaluate the rights contained in the Bill of Rights and other amendments to the Constitution. Our objective today is to learn the amendments enshrined in the Bill of Rights. And our essential questions, what is the Bill of Rights and how does the Bill of Rights establish the rights of citizens? All right, so we're going to get started here in a second. Please follow along in your guided notes. Make sure you're writing down the answers as we go along. This is a pretty neat subject area, and so let's get started. The Bill of Rights was added to our Constitution in 1789 and ratified in 1791. So when the Constitution was originally signed, the Bill of Rights was not there. Remember, we spoke about amendments last week very briefly. An amendment is an add or a change to the Constitution. So when we're adding something to the Constitution, it's called an amendment. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments that were added to the Constitution. In order for the Constitution to be signed, our founding fathers demanded that a list of rights be added to ensure that the government's power was limited. So they made sure, in order that the Bill of Rights was added, that it had to be there, and it was there for you, to protect you from our government. And rights are the things that you are allowed to do that cannot be denied by the government. All right, so to give you an example, we'll go into our next area. After this, an amendment is an official change to the Constitution. So an amendment is a change to the Constitution, and the first ones will kind of outline what those rights are. Again, rights are things the government can't take away from you. For instance, the first big freedoms, or the 5 big freedoms, are attached to the First Amendment, and those are the freedom of speech. Guys, you have the right to say anything, and the government is not allowed to take that away from you. So you can criticize the government, you can say this person's a bad person, I hate this person, and you can't get in trouble for it. No one's going to come knocking on your door saying, hey, you said I hate Joe Biden, or you said I hate Donald Trump. That's not how our government works. You're allowed to express your feelings. You're allowed to say things you want to say. The government can't take that away from you. You have that right. Freedom of religion. Many of our founding fathers, the reasons they came to this country, this continent, was for religious freedom. They wanted to be able to worship the way they wanted to worship, or worship the way they didn't want to worship. It was entirely up to them. Many of our founding fathers started different branches of Christianity here. They were trying to escape religious persecution overseas. And so when they came to America, they said, look, one of the things we're going to protect is your freedom of religion. There will be no state mandated religion. If you don't want to have a religion, that's fine. And the government will never create its own religion and require you to worship it. Freedom of the press. The news can say anything they want to say. If we look back throughout the last 20 years, we can see the news has been very critical of presidents on either side of the aisle, and they're allowed to do that. That's their freedom. Freedom of petition. Guys, you can complain to the government, you can protest, you can say, hey, this is unacceptable, you got to fix it. That's your right. You can literally stand up and say, hey, I think we're being run poorly and I want it changed. And finally, freedom of assembly. You can join together with other people in common spaces and demonstrate against the government, demonstrate against different things. I was driving down the beach the other day, and I saw a group of people protesting for American intervention in Afghanistan. They're carrying Afghani flags. They're marching down the down A1A in the beaches near Jackson Beach, that's their right. They have the freedom of assembly. They can do that all they want. It is protected by our rights as U.S. citizens. The Second Amendment, probably the most well-known amendment out there besides the freedom of speech. The Second Amendment is the right to form a well-regulated militia and the right to bear arms, so you can have firearms. All right. A right to a well-regulated militia means that you are willing to serve in a militia or a paramilitary group to protect the nation. They were really big back in the day, back during the Revolutionary War. There were militias in every state, and that was every man aged like 16 to 50, I believe, is the militia age. Um, and so every American citizen has the opportunity to join a militia. You can too. I know people that were a part of militias in Virginia. It doesn't mean you're a part of the military. It just means that if something terrible happened, you would have a group to fight with. Third Amendment. Third Amendment is no quartering of soldiers. Quartering was the policy of the British Army when they were here in the United States during the Revolutionary War. They would say, okay, you have to house these British soldiers in your house. You have to feed them. You have to give them a place to stay. You're not allowed to charge them rent. Basically, it was a way to control the population. What are you going to do wrong when there's a British soldier living in your house with a gun, right? You're not going to do anything against them. So, no quartering of soldiers came out in a direct response. The U.S. government and our founding fathers said, look, we'll never require you to house soldiers in your house. You will never have to do that. Your house is your own. You don't have to put our people up in it. We'll build housing for them. The Fourth Amendment. It's the protection against unreasonable search and seizure. So it is the requirement that police have a warrant before they search your property. It is the requirement that police have to have a warrant before they arrest you. Unlawful search and seizure protects you against the government intervening in your property. It all requires probable cause. It's a reason to believe you are doing something wrong. Okay. This also includes they can't take your property without paying you for it. Eminent domain. We'll learn more about that later on. Okay. The Fifth Amendment, our rights of the accused, protects you if you have or are being accused of a crime. So, rights of the accused are those things that you are protected by. These end up being our Miranda rights. So, you have a right to a jury. You have no double jeopardy. You can't be charged for the same crime twice. You can only be charged once for it. So, the state of Florida can't charge you for a crime, and the federal government can't charge you for that same crime. You can only be charged for this one crime once. Even if you get off, if they don't find you guilty, they can't come back and recharge you on it. No double jeopardy. No self-incrimination. You're not allowed to turn yourself in. Or let me rephrase that. No self-incrimination means you do not have to tell on yourself. So, for instance, if you are in court and they ask you a question, you can say, I refuse to answer that based on the Fifth Amendment. I don't want to answer a question that's going to put me in trouble. So no self-incriminations means you can't be talked into or tricked into telling on yourself. Right to due process. You have the right for a clean trial. Everyone gets that right. You can't be rushed through. You can't be charged without a reason. You can't not have a lawyer present. And it protects you against the government. And finally, eminent domain. Let me recorrect that. The Fifth Amendment is eminent domain. Your property is yours. The government has to pay you for it. All right. So eminent domain is the government can't take something without paying you first. For example, if the government wanted to build a power line through your neighborhood and it was going to go over your line, they're going to have to put a big power pole on your property. The government has to pay you for that. Or if they want to build a road where your house is, they have to pay you fair market price for your house. Now, if you refuse, they'll still take it and give you the money, but you have a right to be compensated for anything the government takes from you. Continuing on, the Sixth Amendment. This is your right for rights of someone in court. This guarantees your right to a lawyer and a speedy trial and a good jury. So you get a good jury. The jury is made up of your peers. Preferably, they don't know you. It guarantees a speedy trial. You can't be held for years and years and years and years without a trial. And then finally, of course, you get a lawyer to argue your case. Guys, even if I get charged thinking I wouldn't want to defend myself, I don't know the law well enough. You don't know the law well enough. There's not enough shows on TV about lawyers you could watch to prepare you for a court case. So it's very important that we have lawyers to protect us when we're in court. And it also gives you a chance to confront your witness. So you can't be charged by something without knowing who it is that is saying you're doing this stuff. The Seventh Amendment gives you right to a jury in a civil trial. Guys, there's a difference between criminal trial and civil trial. A criminal trial is when someone's done something wrong, they've broken the law. A civil trial is when you're suing somebody else. So civil here being person versus person. In a civil trial, you have a right to a jury as long as the case is over $20. That amount's never changed. Originally, when our founding fathers wrote this amendment, $20 was a lot. Today, it's nothing. That you can see how inflation's really changed. So the right to a trial in a civil trial, right to a jury in a civil trial, requires that you can have a jury if the price of the suit is over $20. If you have to sue someone for $21, then you can get a jury. Okay. And there we go. Civil is people versus people. The Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment says there's no excessive bails or fines. You can't be fined millions and millions and millions of dollars for breaking into a house, is what it is saying. It has to be a fine reminiscent of the punishment. You can't be fined millions of dollars for breaking the speed limit. And no cruel and unusual punishments. You can't torture people. You can't hurt them for not talking. No cruel and unusual punishments protects those that are in jail. The Ninth Amendment. The Ninth Amendment says that rights that are not listed in the Constitution still go to the people. So this is this idea, and we'll really talk about this later on, that you as an individual have rights that are innately to you. You were born with these rights. They're understood. But just in case the rights aren't listed here in the Bill of Rights, you still have other rights as well. We talked about the right to vote. That is another right. It's not listed in the Bill of Rights. The Ninth Amendment says, look, even if it's not listed, it still goes to the people. All right. So even though the right's not listed in the Constitution, because we've listed out every single right that you had as a citizen, it would be too much. We could never get through the entire list. So what our founding fathers did is they said something smart. They said, look, just because it's not listed doesn't mean it's not a right. For instance, our founding fathers had no idea we'd ever invent cell phones. How do you have a right to have a cell phone? Well, it's not listed out. However, the Ninth Amendment says the rights that are not listed in the Constitution still go to the people. And the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment says powers not given to the federal government are reserved for the states. So if the federal government doesn't claim the power, if they're not going to say, hey, this belongs to us, then it goes to the states. So this way, that power that is set up in our federal government is still given to the states, and we have a federal system because of it. Okay, guys, that's the Bill of Rights. Hopefully you enjoy this little video. You can play this in over the course of the day, get your notes, and make sure those are done. All right, we miss you guys. Can't wait to see you when you come back. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon.